What's going on, guys? I'm back with chapter 3 of How to Survive in Hell. Now, before I get this started, I want to apologize. In the background, the last two videos, if not even the older ones, I'm not too sure. Again, I use my Mac to do these videos now, so I actually have the fans running full speed to prevent my 9-year-old iMac from possibly overheating. Now, I don't believe that will be an issue even running a stream. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to take the risk, even though some of you may beg to differ and say, or not beg to differ, but you guys may say otherwise and say that wouldn't it do more damage by doing this and having fans run at full speed and having the processor have to work almost twice as hard. I don't know. But that is that. So again, I turn the fans off to actually see how hot they'll get. As of right now, they're at 40 degrees. For the hard drive, and then the optical drive, which I believe is the CD, is 36. And this is both Celsius, by the way. So let's get started. Now, I want to mention, as I have not put in the titles, I haven't mentioned this. This does mark at the bottom of each of the three parts, as some of these do, that there is a trigger warning. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but to be honest with you, I don't know if any of you will get. I'm not sure if that's like a PTSD trigger. That's what I'm assuming, to be honest with you. Yeah. So that is basically that. Yeah. So okay, let's get started. So I have to leave soon if I'm to make the most of my life on Earth. I'm afraid I'm going to have to skip town. While I've had plenty to keep myself entertained, this body just isn't suitable for a run-in with the police. It's only a matter of time until some nosy neighbor thinks to pick up the phone. With the humidity over the last few days, Mommy and Daddy are already pretty ripe. Now, here's something you have to understand. Hell is a big place. I've given you a fair warning about a few of the locations I myself have run into. And that will have to do. Even if I wrote a library's worth of novels solely dedicated to mapping out the distinct locations within the eyes, I still couldn't tell you everything about the city. What I can do is give you a bit of information about some of the damned. The Slaughterman. Take a moment to think about all the celebrities you know. How many of them do you reckon would do well in DIs? Not many, I'll wager. Perhaps none. Fame and fortune on Earth doesn't count for shit when you're dead. We've all heard that. You know, you can't take the money with you when you die. Yeah. Very few people are strong enough, mean enough, and downright psychotic enough to earn a reputation in hell. Those few who have what it takes are people you never want to meet. The Slaughterman is one of Hell's legends. A huge, bearded man with filed teeth, bloodshot eyes, and foam on his lips. Rumor has it that the day he first emerged from a birthing sack, he was unlucky enough to land at the feet of the slaver tribe. While those tribesmen chuckled to themselves and readied their clubs and whips, only too happy to take some fresh meat captive. Outnumbered 12 to 1, naked, unarmed, and brand new to hell, most people wouldn't stand a chance. If you believe the stories, the Slaughterman shrugged off. If you believe the stories, the Slaughterman shrugged off the clubs battering against him and the whips cutting into his flesh as though they were insect bites. He picked up the first slaver and put his hand into the man's mouth and pulled his jaw right out of his skull. He moved on to another, then another, tearing them apart with his bare hands until the survivors turned and fled. Nobody knows for sure who he was in life. I've heard stories, though, the most popular one being that he was a berserker of Stamford Bridge. Supposedly, a single Viking held up the English army single-handed. It didn't matter that he could never win, that he was outnumbered, that his enemies had better weapons and armor. He stood on that bridge and he fought. By the time he was brought down, he killed no less than 40 men. I don't know how true any of this is. I've never seen a slaughterman for myself, and I don't fucking want to. What I can tell you for sure is that people don't become legendary in hell without a good reason. I'd guess that the only one who knows the truth is the slaughterman himself, and he isn't saying anything, as you might expect. Since the day he arrived in hell, he's only spoken once. The fleeing slavers heard it as the slaughterman tore their tribe apart. Naked, bloody, and surrounded by corpses. The slaughterman looked up to the storm, racked sky, and bellowed a single word: Valhalla. Hellhounds. How's about a little story, huh? I wasn't new to hell. I'd made myself some clothes and a wooden club, found shelter, and had a big slab of meat roasting over a campfire. The only thing I didn't have was a tribe. The area I'd been birthed in seemed slummy even for DIs. Hal half-collapsed hovels. Iron was scarce, barely enough to make myself a water bowl. All in all, not a good spot for a tribe. My plan was simple enough. I'd have a decent meal, carve myself a shiv, my club, then find somewhere more or less dry to sleep. After that, I'd set off to look for a tribe. Tribal initiations result in few scars and a broken nose, so I wanted to be as well rested as I could be. Sleeping in hell is both vital and dangerous. There is a knack to finding somewhere that's simultaneously sheltered, hidden, and with access to an escape route. Even then, you never get more than a few hours at a time. And how the slightest suspicious noise should scare the absolute fucking shit out of you. A low, throaty growl definitely counts as a suspicious noise. I leaped out of my impromptu nest of wood, raised my club, and returned the growl with one of my own. A woman had crept into my building and was staring at me with dilated pupils. She looked to be in a bad way, skinny, naked, and covered in weeping sores. Her lips peeled back to reveal broken and jagged teeth. It took me all of a second to size her up. She'd be living rough for days or weeks. Judging from her protruding ribs and bloated stomach, she was well on her way to dying of starvation. So she was weak, hungry, and didn't even have a weapon. I've already eaten, I said, relaxing a little and giving my club a few practice swings. No sense in letting you go to waste, though. I took a step towards her, and she bolted, just turned right around and scampered away in strange animal gait. I took off after her, certain that I could outpace her. Even if there wasn't much meat on her, bones still can be useful. I chased her through a few streets, struggling to keep my foot on the muddy ground. When I finally got close enough to swing my club, she stopped dead. The suddenness of it caught me off guard, and I tripped over, losing my club as I fell. She howled in triumph, a sound that was echoed by a dozen of other throats. Well, that day I learned two things about the Hellhounds. The people who lose their minds and become little more than beasts after enduring centuries in hell. Firstly, They have the necessary animal cunning to hunt as a pack. Secondly, human teeth and fingernails are perfectly capable of ripping flesh from the bone. The surgeons. Modern doctors rarely thrive in hell. Acad- academia, academia and reliance on technology don't leave you in the best state to endure the endless violence and brutality. There are exceptions, though. The people who learn to sew their friends back together amid the machine gun fire and so many shamans, witch doctors, and holy men who endured famine and warfare. Survivalists who knew to cauterize their own wounds, in the middle of a forest. Those are the people who might just be strong enough to ply their trade to the damned. After all, working knowledge of basic medicine is just one of those things that's beyond a lot of meatheads roaming the eyes. Most of Hell's surgeons find a tribe as soon as they're able. Their tools might be crude, but to make do. Flint, slate, and shards of glass serve as their scalpels. They make thread from human hair and needles from slivers of iron. Whenever a member of the tribe has an infected sore, a surgeon will be the one on the drain, will be the one to drain the pus. Ew. A tribal surgeon could well save your life, but they'll do it without anesthetic. Yeah, that's the catch. Then there are the freelance surgeons, the ones who try to go in alone. They make themselves a uniform, the theory being that the damned will recognize them if they all look alike. It doesn't really work, but then you can't expect much logic from people who've lost count of how many times they've died. Fashion change over time. Fashions change over time. I'm told that freelancers wore head dresses and bone necklaces at one point. The current trend is to mimic Venetian plague doctors by donning a beaked mask and wearing a long coat of blackened skin. Freelancers are rare, very rare, in fact. You'll see thousands of damned for every freelance surgeon you come around. When you do come across one, be fucking careful. Firstly, surgeons don't get a free pass in hell. The damned are more likely to attack a freelancer than they are to barter their tools, clothes, or slaves in exchange for his service. You can't be certain if the man in the bird mask and black coat is really a surgeon or somebody who murdered a surgeon and took his clothes. Perhaps they made the outfit themselves in order to draw the weak and the wounded close. Advertising doesn't always idealize. Freelancer turns out to be genuine. That doesn't give you an excuse to drop your guard. Freelance surgeons aren't usually the most stable people. Put another way, freelancers are usually sadistic fucking psychopaths. Nice. Sure, they might stitch you back together and send you on your way to the side. It would be more interesting if they were somebody else. They might think paying an arm and a leg for their service should be taken. They some wannabe serial killer who's yet to find their way to Skin Street. For each freelancer trying to do a tough job in a tougher place, there are a dozen or so who want to try out their toys on someone too injured to fight back. Stick with your tribe's surgeon. You have to have one. Following that to learn, failing that, learn to patch up your own wounds. Trust me, to read, you've already intellectual advantage over a lot of Hell's residents. Universal education is pretty recent. Freelancers aren't worth the risk. Camions. I'll be honest with you here. I don't actually exist. What I'm going to tell you is something that somebody else told me. Not if it's true or not. Personally, I really fucking hope it isn't. People rape one another in hell. If you're not strong enough, it'll happen to you. The good news out there is that damned men fire for being impregnated. I say almost never, because if you believe the stories, incredibly couple of those little swimmers were looking for an egg. Just to put this in perspective, we're talking conjoined twins, cycling this here, and that's just conception. The chances of a pregnant woman surviving the full 9 months in hell are probably conjoined of unlikely. You're talking about a perfect storm of beating the odds here. A monkey randomly mashing keys on a typewriter will eventually produce the complete works of Shakespeare if it goes at it for eternity. The result of that perfect storm of those monkeys with their typewriters is a camion. A child and born in hell. I'm not saying that they exist, okay? I'm saying I've met somebody who swears it's true and that he's seen himself. You see babies in their birthing sac from time to time. Usually, it's just a body. Occasionally, you see one drowning. Most of the damned ignore them. They wouldn't survive a day on the streets, even if you could afford to devote your full attention to them. Better to leave them be. It's only the really fucked up people who cut through the sack. And yeah, I'm not going to finish that. I'm getting sidetracked. So, this Cambion, who may or may not have existed, apparently looked like a normal child. It cried, it shit, it sucked its mother's tits, just like a regular baby would. Mother was a part of a tribe, and they'd been able to protect her through her pregnancy. Could be curiosity, perhaps? When it was born, the whole tribe gathered around to have a look. Amongst them was the man who told me the story. Somebody had met 3 years later, Somebody had meet 3 years later and eventually kill. This man cut the baby's cord and lifted it up to his face. Every man in the tribe had raped the mother at one point or another, and he wanted to see if the child looked anything like him. The Cambion looked like a normal child in every way but one. Its eyes were dead, lifeless, like a doll's. Sure, the kid was alive. It wriggled and cried like a normal baby, but those fucking eyes, not scrunched closed like a newborn's eyes should be. Wide, fucking open, empty doll's eyes. If that story is true, I don't blame the child. Something like that shouldn't exist. Right. Okay, I'm done. And I have to go now. This is the point where people like to have things up. A few dragons slain. A few maidens saved, even. I expect some kind of moral lesson to think over. I think that, in this case, that sort of thing is missing the point. There are no dragons to slay. No mortals to learn. We do not live happily ever after. There's no grand revelation, no clever twist, No purpose, no redemption, and no hope. There's only eternity among our own kind. So I'm literally just... all right, here's my plan. Start trying to... So basically, and there's a lot of people, there is still a chance that this person might post more, despite this being part 3 and the final part. So again, this is submitted 5 hours. It's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, so I'm going to try to figure out for the next, literally as a, I'm that's what she said. So I'm trying to look for, okay, so there's this one. I'm going to pin this onto my web browser so I can close this. But in essence, guys, I'm going to read one that I've already found, and basically that will be that. So I do apologize again. The last few videos have been with the fans in the background, and that may have been kind of hard to hear me because of it. But yeah, so I hope you guys... But yep, there goes sirens again. But sorry. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening, and have a great one.